Lies.
Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe, your regular Wednesday evening host here at BodyBags. It is, well, not theme week per se, but second week into the month. We always either do a label or year. And this week happens to be a label of sorts. Films that fall underneath the films to die for, or I think it was the 8 films to die for, which back in 06 was the After Dark Horror Fest, I think in November. And so there was 8, I think, independent films, such as the Grave Dancers, the Hamiltons, Wicked Little Things, Penny Dreadful, just to name a couple. And so this is a film that I picked up on the cheap at either Second and Charles or CD Warehouse, but relatively cheap. I mean, it was probably like $2.99 or something. I'm just going to get it out of the way. I highly suggest. I see it's on Tubi, at least according to IMDb. I highly suggest, if you've never seen this film, you really need to see it. I watched it last night, you know, down here in my little cave of sorts, pitch black room. I put this thing on about 10-ish. Now, I've said this before, I am not one to do well late at night, man. And it has usually nothing to do with the film. It has everything to do with I'm 53, and just staying up longevity at night is tougher and tougher. I'm going to say this. I put this on at 10, figuring I'd just fall asleep halfway through. Not because expecting the film was going to be, you know, that, but just me. You know, it's what I do. I'm going to just say, I put this in, man. I was in for the long haul, man. Right to the, I don't think my eyes were trying to give way really towards the very, very end, but I was able to fight through it and hang on to the very end. And it was well worth it, man. This was a surprise. This was, and I'm sure I got a few of these on my shelf that I haven't watched yet. I pick it up on the cheap, you know, for whatever reason. I think it's going to come in handy for body bags. Looks interesting. And I probably have a few of these gems on my shelf, not knowing they're gems. This is a gem. But we'll get into that in a second. Another random week after this week, and then our International Horror Volume 1. I am really stoked for that end of the month theme week. All of us basically pick a different country, region around the world, and pick a horror film from that region. And so just going to be an international flavor throughout the week. I'm going Italy, of course, and a film that I have not seen probably since I rented it on VHS way back as a kid, and that is Bianchi's Burial Ground. I'm very looking forward to revisiting that for that theme week. And then, you know, the next month. Okay, so Dark Ride. This is a Craig Singer film. There's a lot I could say about this film. It's independent filmmaking, of course, but it was shot on 35mm, and at times, there's one scene in particular when our cast of heroes are walking, and they do a fine job, all of them. When they're walking to the dark ride in question, it's the aesthetics. I don't know how they got this shot doing 35mm exactly, but it reminded me of the shot Rob Zombie would get on H2 early on, the rain coming down on the street, in the street lights, and of course he shot that in 16mm. So there's going to be that grainy feel. Well, there's a couple spots in here where there's this grainy feel, and when they're approaching the dark ride, of course it's in the middle of the night, it's raining, and it has that aesthetic quality. And I had to double check. I'm like, surely this isn't 16mm, and it's not. It's 35mm spherical, and I'm not sure exactly how that plays in, but I don't make myself to be an expert, but it was curious to me. Some of the grain that appears in this film, I love it. I love it, but I'm just trying to figure out how they got it like that. So aesthetically, there's times that this movie looks really freaking cool to me. And the acting, these guys, man, these guys showed up in force, man. They really took... It might not be the tightest script in the world, but they really took what was given and they had fun, man. You watch the making of it and you can tell these guys, man, I don't know any of these people except for one. I do know Patrick Renna as Bill, of course, if you're familiar with the Bad Blood episode from the X-Files or The Sandlot. He really comes in and delivers an interesting role here as Bill. Jamie-Lynn Sigler, who is Kathy, and of course David Clayton Rogers as Steve. They've sort of had a relationship. Then there's Jim, Alex Solowitz, and Jennifer Tisdale as Liz. She's hoping that she can get her hands on Jim. And Jen, Andrea Bogart, our crazy hitchhiker, who really is probably the poor man's version of Baby from A House of a Thousand Corpses, which just came out in 2003. This is an 2006 film. I don't think I mentioned that. And I don't think I mentioned this is week 507 here at BodyBags. But, you know, depending on what review you read, and I do read reviews quite a bit. I have a select go-tos, one of which I was really surprised trashed this movie pretty big. The other one, The Hysteria Lives, one of our main lovable characters from the Hysteria podcast, Hysteria Continues podcast, really gave it a great one. And Brett Gallman also gave it a really good review. I'm with that, man. And this movie, man, on so many levels, was exceeded my expectations, way beyond. There's these two twins, man. Okay, so really what we got here, if you've never, and many of you maybe never seen Dark Ride, oh man, it's a straightforward slasher, which pays dues to the 80s slasher boom. Of course, you think of the Funhouse, you know, Tobe Hooper's classic, films like that, right? It does a really, really, really good job. You know, if it has one moment where, I mean, I get it what they're going for something different. Our nemesis, our antagonist, our main killer, has committed atrocious crimes. He has made a living, or he has found a home living in this dark ride, which is at Asbury Park, New Jersey. And these, unfortunately, our prologue or preface to this film is two twins who decide at the end of a day or something, maybe it's off season or about to hit off season, but they want to catch one of the last rides. They go in, of course, and never come out. It's pretty brutal what this guy does. No care how young these girls are or whatnot. But they're played by twins. And one's that sort of spunky punk girl, and the other one's a sort of a goody two-shoes. And, you know, so those kind of dynamics ride in through that ride. And then, boom, flash forward to modern day. And you would expect you would get this next, but you get to meet our heroes first, our teenagers. And then you sort of skip to 2 weeks earlier, and now we're in the insane asylum where this killer's been held up. When he's committed that atrocious crime that we see at the very beginning of the film, he is caught and put in an insane asylum. The quirkiness of this is that, and I wish they would have, you know, the whole film is really straightforward. And I really wish, for the most part, I really wish they would have stayed straightforward to this moment. You know, they could have looked to stage fright for, you know, just simplistic, basic, how do we get this guy out of this insane asylum? The method they choose is, apparently he's a strict vegetarian, meat empowers him, and so these two guys almost reminds you of, it won't even come out to 2007, was Rob Zombie's Halloween, the unrated cut, in how those two guys go in and mess with Michael. It sort of reminds you of that in a way. These two guys come in and they're just going to mess with this guy. And he's, you know, he's not supposed to eat meat. So he's got this big pork chop, something, steak, whatever. And he's like slapping him over the head with it. And he finally forces him to eat it. Well, once he does, man, it's like Popeye getting a spinach. Brawn! He just gets all bust through the thing, through his restraints, and makes do of those two in quick order, and then makes his way back to the dark ride. Now flash 2 weeks back, and our heroes who are on their way to spring break to New Orleans from New Jersey, quite a ride. But it's stereotypical. Everything is stereotypical in here. The Chevy van from, or Dodge van from the old days. is, you know, the cast are teenagers and the roles they fill. It's all, you know, we've seen it a million times. But we have not seen it done as well after the fact as well as this. This belongs on the near the top of the heap of sort of throwback 80s slasher, those who pay nods to the 80s. And it's got to give credit for playing it straightforward. The effects are amazing, this movie. It is gory at points. And this guy, man, you never really totally understand the psychosis going on here, what drives him, motivates him, but it's something to do with just, it's imitating or mimicking the rides in this dark ride. And so what he does to people, in some ways, he's only mimicking what he sees in the ride. He's part of the ride, so to speak. And so he's interacting with it psychologically. And it's interesting. You know, besides the breakout, which is a little weird, the choice for mask is a little weird. It just doesn't, I don't know. I guess it sort of fits psychologically. I guess it kind of fits what he does and what's working his motivations. He's really working on base level things here. Jonah, by the way, is his name. Our killer's name is Jonah. There's a bit of a twist revealed towards the end. It's sort of perhaps maybe our kids don't end up at this dark ride completely by accident. Now, and I'll just leave it at that. You really need to see it. It's you know, what's that one movie, Lost After Dark, maybe? It was sort of one of the newer throwbacks to the 80s, and there's been a few of them of late. I haven't been able to see as many of them as, I don't know. You see one that's a bad one, and you just kind of like, yeah, I'll stick with the originals. But this gives us reason why we ought not to do that. We ought to give these films a chance, these throwbacks, these the films that look back to the golden age. And I want to just say something about our poor man's version of Baby. The girl who plays Jen, Andrea Bogart, is a little over the top. She's no Sherry Moon Zombie, or should I say, I shouldn't say this. She's no Hitchhiker from Texas Chainsaw. She does try to play it over the top. And for what she's given and what she's asked to do, I think she does pretty darn good. But her character just does warm on you as sort of a psychotic, shroom-eating, it really reminds you of Baby in a way. And her end, that special effects sequence involving a decapitation with her, it might be the high point of the special effects in this movie. How they did that is it's nothing short of amazing. It's a great effect. A lot of the effects in here are really good. You can't talk highly enough about the gore aspect in this. I kind of wish, I don't know how this stuff works exactly. Like, I don't know, like, if a director, even given, and this movie, by the way, made like 2.5 million domestically, it begs a continuation. I think it's good enough for a continuation by the same director. And I didn't write down the title, but this guy has been working, man. He's been putting out, he just put out something in 21 or 21. He's also known for Perkins 14. I didn't see that one. But this guy's a pretty solid filmmaker, man. And I would love to see a real theatrical, either a continuation of this and a sequel. It's kind of tough in how it ends. Exactly, you'd have to see it. I'm not going to give it away. And there is an interesting twist in there, which, I mean, if you're, you know, it sort of comes pretty easy in terms of where you're going with it. But it's not bad. It's not without its flaws, but it's not bad either. I was really pretty impressed. Overall, extremely impressed, actually. Look, anything that I've never seen before, I can put in at 10 o'clock at night, and if it holds me for pretty much the duration, that speaks volumes. And the flaw is with me, not the films necessarily. And that needs to be stressed. I mean, how many times I've said it in the past. tried to get through, man. And the automatic response is, oh, man, movie that bad? No, it's just me. I mean, I can't pull the all-nighters like I used to. But being down here with our 55 now and the pitch black, it does make for some interesting ambiance with the sound bar and everything. So I really did get a giant kick out of this. And so check it out. And I'm sure some of the other ones are probably pretty good too in the 8 films to die for. So that's what we're doing this week. Films to die for all week long. I'm ecstatic to check out what everyone's other responses are to the films they selected. And maybe perhaps by the end of the week, we're going to give you more than one reason why this series needs to be redelved into. Anyways, always end these things off with Go Bills.